Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never imagined that a night at my best friend's house would end in blood. If I had known, I would have stayed home. I would have pretended to be sick, grounded, anything. But I didn't. I said yes without thinking, the way you do when you trust someone, when you're too young to believe monsters wear human faces. My name is Riley Brooks. I was 16 when it happened. It started like 1,000 other sleepovers. Text messages passed between desks during school, a quick call to my mom, and a duffel bag stuffed with leggings, snacks, and a charger. My best friend's name was Leah Madsen. She lived out past the edge of town, in a 2-story colonial house on Elk Ridge Road, the kind of place with a long gravel driveway, a tire swing, and woods thick enough to swallow sound. Leah's family had always been kind to me. Her mom, Claire, was a nurse who worked the day shift at the local clinic. Her stepdad, Warren, worked on HVAC systems and always smelled like dust and engine oil. And then there was her older brother, Caleb. I'd only seen him a few times. At the grocery store, in passing in their kitchen, and once when he picked Leah up from school in his truck. There was something cold about him. Not rude, not angry, just absent. His eyes didn't match the rest of him, like his body had stayed, but his mind had wandered off somewhere darker. Leah never talked about him much, just said he'd dropped out and moved away for a while, got into some trouble but came back recently. Mom says he's trying to do better, she told me once, in the tone people use when they don't believe the words they're saying. It was a Friday in late October when I stayed the night. The air smelled like burning leaves and the sky turned black before 6. When my mom dropped me off, Claire was just finishing dinner, chicken and biscuits with green beans and sweet tea. Warren waved from the garage, his hands stained with grease. The house smelled like cinnamon from one of those plug-in air fresheners. Everything was normal, mostly, except Leah kept glancing at her phone. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her hoodie during dinner. Claire tried to make conversation, asking about school, but Leah only gave clipped answers. I kicked her under the table. She looked at me and forced a smile, but her eyes didn't match it. Later, when we went up to her room to set up for a movie, I asked, "What's wrong?" She hesitated. Then, Caleb texted, "He's coming by tonight." I felt my stomach tighten a little. I thought he wasn't living here anymore. "He's not," she said, "but he shows up when he wants something. Usually money." "From your mom?" She didn't answer right away. "Warren, he won't give it to him, not anymore." "Why not?" She looked out the window. "Because last time Caleb punched a hole in the wall when they argued. Mom said that's the last time he's allowed here, but he doesn't care." Her words hung in the air like fog. I didn't push her. We watched the ring and pretended we weren't both listening for a car engine. It was almost 12:30 a.m. when we heard it, the low growl of tires crunching gravel. Leah froze. "Maybe it's not him," I whispered. "It's him." We heard the front door open, not knocked, not rang, just opened and slammed shut. Then Caleb's voice muffled through the floorboards. "I said I need the damn money, Warren." A low, firm reply. "Warren, I told you, no more handouts. Get a job, get help." "I am helping myself, you bastard. You think I won't?" Leah stood up, shaking. "I have to check." "No." I grabbed her arm. "Stay up here." But she slipped away before I could stop her. The hallway light clicked on. I crept after her and peeked down the stairs. Claire was at the base of the staircase, arms out like a shield. Warren stood behind her, chest rising and falling. And Caleb stood in the living room, wearing a black hoodie and jeans, face pale and slick with sweat. His eyes looked wild, unfocused. And then, I don't even know where it came from, he pulled a shotgun out from under his coat. Claire screamed. Warren lunged. The first blast rang out like thunder. Warren dropped. Leah screamed. Claire knelt beside him, sobbing. "Warren! Oh my God, please!" The second blast knocked her backward. She hit the tile hard. "Mom!" Leah shrieked, stumbling halfway down the stairs. Caleb looked up, blood flecking his cheek, his face twisted into something unrecognizable. "Leah," he said, voice too calm, too cold. "You need to shut up now." "Run," I hissed. I didn't even know I'd said it aloud. Leah turned and bolted. I grabbed her hand and yanked her back into her room. We slammed the door, locked it, shoved a desk in front. "What the hell is he doing?" I whispered, heart pounding in my throat. "I don't know," Leah sobbed. I didn't know he'd..." Her words were cut off by the creak of the stairs. Thump, 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 heavy boots climbing. Then his voice, quiet, mocking. Leah, don't make me come find you." She gasped and grabbed her phone, dialed 911. He pounded on the door. "You calling the pigs?" he hissed. 911. "What's your emergency?" "Please," Leah whispered. "My brother shot our parents. He's trying to kill us." The door splintered as the butt of the shotgun crashed into it. "Open the goddamn door!" The lock snapped. We didn't wait. I yanked Leah toward the window. "Go, now." "It's the second floor. We'll jump." We barely got it open before Caleb shoved through the remains of the door. He grabbed Leah's leg. "You think you can run from me?" I kicked him, hard, right in the face. Leah slipped from his grasp. We climbed out, hit the porch roof hard, rolled, and dropped to the ground. I heard the window break behind us. We ran, not down the driveway. That's where his truck was. We ran toward the woods, leaves slicing our faces, branches slapping skin. The cold air burned in my lungs. Behind us, a shotgun blast tore through the air. We ducked, kept running. I don't know how far we went. Maybe half a mile before we saw porch lights. A small cabin, Mr. Hollis's hunting shack. He was inside, cleaning his rifle. When he saw us covered in blood, screaming, he let us in and locked every door. The police came 15 minutes later, too late for Claire, or Warren. They found Caleb walking back to his truck, laughing to himself. Blood soaked into his sleeves. He didn't resist. Leah was placed in protective custody for months. I testified at trial. He got life without parole. I still see it. Every night. Leah moved away, changed her name. I never slept over at anyone's house again. Because monsters aren't under the bed. They live down the hall. They eat at your table. They call you family. And sometimes, they bring a shotgun. It started with a knock. Not a loud one. Not the kind you'd remember. But in hindsight, it was the first domino. Billy Reynolds was 12 when the knocking began. He'd lie awake at night in the small bedroom off the kitchen, listening. First came the creak of the hallway floorboards, then the barely there tap of fingers against wood. Then silence. He never opened the door. His mother, Sharon, told him not to. "If you ever hear someone knocking and it's not me, you do not open that door. Do you understand, Billy?" He did. Even then, he understood rules more than he understood love. By 16, Billy didn't need to be told what to do anymore. The rules were carved into his bones, deeper than any name ever would be. The Reynolds family lived in a low-income neighborhood in a fading town called Pine Hollow, 3 hours from anything people called a city. There were 5 liquor stores and 7 churches in a 5-mile radius. A train passed through the outskirts twice a day, its long whistle slicing the silence like a blade through gauze. Sharon worked the night shift at the gas station off Route 7. Billy's father, Don, had once been a warehouse worker, but that was before the layoff and the back injury that no doctor ever confirmed. These days, he mostly sat in his recliner watching static-filled news or nursing bottles of Milwaukee's Best, until he fell asleep with a cigarette burning near his thigh. Billy, meanwhile, learned how to disappear, in hallways, in classrooms, in his own home. "Why don't you talk more?" his math teacher, Mrs. Langley, once asked. Billy had shrugged. Nothing to say. Which was only half the truth. One Thursday night around dinner, Sharon stirred spaghetti in a pot that clung like cement to the sides. Billy sat at the small table in the corner, textbook open but unread. The TV in the living room spat news about another school shooting. Don came stomping down the hallway in a white undershirt and boxers. "Where the hell's the damn remote?" Sharon didn't flinch. "Same place you left it." "You got a smart mouth for someone feeding us slop again." Billy felt his stomach tighten. Don's voice was like a starting gun. Once it fired, there was no going back. Sharon turned around, holding the wooden spoon like a weapon. "Then get off your lazy ass and make your own dinner." Don stepped forward. "What did you just say to me?" Billy closed his textbook. This was how it always began. When the fight ended, Sharon had a split lip, and the spaghetti lay like a dead animal across the linoleum. Don huffed back to the living room, muttering. Billy helped his mother to the bathroom. She dabbed her mouth with toilet paper, eyes red, but not from crying, from holding it in. "He'll calm down," she said, as if that made it better. Billy didn't respond. She stared at herself in the mirror. He wasn't always like this. Billy looked at her through the reflection. "Were you?" Sharon didn't answer. Sharon had grown up in a trailer with 6 siblings and a mother who worshipped pain like a religion. Her father, whoever he was, had never been in the picture. By 14, Sharon had her first job, and by 17, her first broken rib from a boyfriend named Rick. She'd learned that if someone said, "I love you," and then threw a punch, it meant you should try harder. Don, on the other hand, had been the quiet type once, charming even. He wrote bad poetry and played guitar in high school. But years of failure had congealed inside him like wet cement. He blamed the world, the economy, his wife, the kid, never himself. Billy had grown up watching this play out on repeat. It was like living inside a rerun, only the pain was always new. The last real conversation Billy had with anyone was with his school counselor. "Do you feel safe at home?" Billy had nodded. "You hesitated." "I'm just thinking." "What are you thinking about?" Billy stared at her for a long time. What it would take to make it stop. It was a Saturday morning when Billy decided he was done being the kid. He'd gone to the fridge to grab some orange juice, found only beer and ketchup. Don was on the couch snoring. Sharon was outside smoking, barefoot, staring at nothing. Billy shut the fridge and opened the drawer, took out the sharpest knife, not to use, just to hold. It felt good, like something that could listen. By Tuesday, Billy had made a plan. It wasn't complicated. That night, after Sharon's shift, they argued again, loud, violent. The next morning, Billy called the school, faked a cough, said he was sick. Nobody asked follow-up questions, why would they? The house was quiet by 11 a.m. Billy had vacuumed the hallway, washed the dishes, took out the trash. Then he went to his parents' room. Don was sleeping, shirtless, a beer can resting on his chest like a badge of honor. Billy watched him for a full minute. Then he placed a pillow over his father's face. Don flailed at first, then stopped. Sharon came home 2 hours later, tired and smelling like gasoline. "Where's your dad?" Billy was behind her before she turned. "I don't know," he said, and swung the hammer. They sat at the kitchen table the next day, Billy across from 2 lifeless bodies, both with painted expressions, Don's in a mix of rage and disbelief, Sharon's stuck between terror and grief. Billy had propped them up like puppets, stitched their eyes open, used duct tape to keep their mouths in shapes that resembled speech. "You don't care about me," Billy said, addressing them both. "But now you'll listen." He moved their heads like a ventriloquist. "Billy," he said in Don's gruff voice, "you've really disappointed me." Then switching to Sharon's soft drawl, "He's still just a boy, Don. He needs help." Billy laughed. "I needed help a long time ago." He stayed in the house for 3 more days. No one came. No one called. The landlord slipped a note under the door about rent. Billy used a red crayon to draw a smiley face and slid it back. He cooked himself meals, watched cartoons, talked to his parents at dinner. They never argued anymore. They were finally quiet. On the fourth night, the knocking came back. Software deliberate. 3 raps, then silence. Billy froze, stared at the door. It was the same sound from when he was 12, from when Sharon had said, "Don't ever open it if it's not me." But Sharon was here. Kind of. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Billy walked to the door, pressed his ear to the wood. "Billy?" A voice whispered from the other side. "You did good." He stepped back. "Who are you?" he asked. Silence. Then, "Let me in." Billy didn't move. "I'm proud of you." His hand hovered over the lock, but he didn't open it. By the time the cops arrived, the house smelled like rust and rot. The neighbors had finally called, said they hadn't seen Dawn or Sharon in a while, said something felt off about the kid. Inside, they found the bodies seated at the table, dressed up for dinner. Sharon still had the fork in her throat. Dawn's face was purple and unrecognizable. Billy sat on the floor of his bedroom, smiling. "I made them stop," he whispered as they cuffed him. Billy was declared unfit for trial, diagnosed with psychotic breaks, disassociation, and severe trauma. They placed him in a juvenile psychiatric unit, where he spoke to walls and said things like, "They finally listen now." But he never opened the door again, not even when the knocking came at night, and it always did. I told no one. Not the school counselor, not my bus driver, not even the quiet girl who sat next to me in homeroom and once handed me a tissue when I sneezed. I was 13 the first time I realized other kids didn't live like I did. It happened in the most ordinary way, watching Olivia Price unzip her lunchbox and pull out a thermos of warm spaghetti, a juice box, and 2 cookies sealed neatly in plastic wrap. She caught me staring, smiled. "You want one?" I shook my head, but I couldn't stop looking. That food, it was clean. Heron not like at home. At home, nothing was yours. My name is Callie Brooke Pearson, and I grew up in a rundown 2-bedroom house on the edge of Larchwood, South Dakota. You've never heard of it, and that's the point. People go there to disappear. My parents, Linda and Keith Pearson, weren't the kind of monsters you read about in fairy tales. They were quieter, more methodical. The kind of evil that smiles when it signs your school papers and asks the neighbors about their kids like everything's normal. But behind closed doors, it was different. So different. The house always smelled like old cigarettes and something sour. We had 5 kids total. Me, my brothers Denny, 11, and Kyle, 9, and twin girls Mara and June, barely 6. We weren't allowed in the front yard, and if we went to school, we came straight home. Mom didn't work. Said she was raising the future. Dad worked nights at a warehouse. He came home angry. Every day. No matter what. It started small. I remember the first time he locked me in the closet. I was 9. I had spilled orange juice on his sock. "You're gonna learn," he said, pushing me in. I stayed there for almost 9 hours. No light, no food. Just me, the smell of mildew, and the sound of Mara crying outside the door. "You okay, Cal?" she whispered. I didn't answer. If I did, he'd hear. And that was worse. When I turned 13, the beatings got worse. Mom started calling me ugly little slut anytime Dad so much as looked at me, as if I was somehow responsible for his stares. I started showering less, wearing oversized clothes. I tried to make myself invisible. Didn't work. One day in winter, I woke up to Dad sitting at the foot of my mattress. I froze. His hand was on my calf. "You're growing up too fast," he whispered. I didn't speak, didn't move. Just stared at the wall like if I stared hard enough, maybe I could melt into it. Then I heard the floor creak. "Mom, what the hell are you doing in here?" she barked. Dad stood, just making sure she's not sneaking food again. I wasn't. We never had food to sneak. The next day, Mom dragged me into the bathroom, locked the door, slammed me into the mirror. "You think you're some little seductress, huh?" she growled, spitting in my face. My head bounced off the tile. Blood, my blood. I tasted it. She lit her cigarette, pressed it into the side of my thigh. I screamed. She smiled. I went to school with long sleeves, a limp, and silence. Always silence. "Did you fall?" asked Mr. DeWitt, the science teacher. I nodded. He believed me. Everyone always did. The attic was our punishment room. No light, no insulation, no way to tell time. Denny was up there once for 3 days. When he came down, he didn't speak for a week. He still doesn't say much. I kept a journal under a loose floorboard. It wasn't for escape, it was for remembering. The lies, the bruises, the moments they couldn't erase by saying, "We love you," because they always said that afterward. That's how they kept you broken and compliant. I'm hard on you because I love you. If I didn't care, I wouldn't bother disciplining you. You don't know how good you have it. But I knew better, and I started planning. When I turned 15, I stole a paperclip from the school library, straightened it out, practiced on the bathroom lock for weeks. Mom and Dad had started chaining the fridge shut, feeding us once a day, if that, cold beans, uncooked rice, moldy bread. I was skin and bones. Mara's ribs looked like piano keys. One night, Dad didn't come home. He was arrested for stealing tools at work. Mom was furious, drank half a bottle of something strong and passed out on the couch. I saw my chance. I used the paperclip on the front door. Took 3 minutes, but I got it open. I went straight to the twins' room, woke them up, then Denny, then Kyle. "We're leaving," I whispered. June started crying. I covered her mouth gently. "Shh, just a walk. Trust me." Denny nodded. He didn't need convincing. Neither did Kyle. We crept through the snow barefoot, didn't have time for shoes. It was 3 miles to the gas station. I carried June half the way. My feet bled. Denny kept looking over his shoulder. We finally saw the lights of the Shell station. I collapsed near the ice machine. An old man came out, eyes wide. "What in God's name? Call 911, I gasped. And then the world spun. Cops came in less than 10 minutes. They wrapped us in blankets, asked questions, took pictures, so many pictures. They took us to a hospital. We were malnourished, covered in old bruises. Denny had a fractured wrist. Mara had cigarette burns on her back. I had a scar on my thigh I refused to explain. Mom was arrested 2 days later. Dad, too, once they connected the dots. They cried in court, said they were struggling, said they loved us. The judge wasn't moved. "Life without parole," she said. The courtroom clapped. I didn't. I just looked at the floor and thought, finally. We were placed in foster care. At first it was scary. Every door felt dangerous. But eventually we learned what safety sounded like, what love really looked like. The first time someone made us pancakes, I cried. The second time, I asked for seconds. I'm 19 now, studying social work. I want to help kids like me. I still have nightmares sometimes, but now when I wake up, there's no rotten smell, no locked doors, no eyes in the dark, just sunlight and silence. The good kind. I was 15 the summer it happened. The kind of age where you think you're grown because your voice sounds different in the mirror and your legs stretch longer in the sun. My name is Lena Morgan, and in July of 2002, I was spending 2 weeks away from my home in Maple Rock, Georgia, staying with my cousin Kaylee in a quiet neighborhood in the next town over. Kaylee and I had always been close, more like sisters than cousins, and her parents, my Aunt June and Uncle Mark, were the kind that left you mostly alone as long as you didn't break anything. That July, they were both working long shifts, so most days, we had the house to ourselves. It was supposed to be freedom. It felt like freedom. We'd wake late, eat toaster waffles while watching trash TV, and then sunbathe in the backyard or wander around the nearby park. It was that weird space between childhood and something more, when you still wore glitter nail polish but your thoughts had started to sharpen into something complicated. But no one talks about how easy it is to disappear when you're free. That day, it was hot. The kind of sticky Georgia heat that makes the air feel like honey. Kaylee and I had walked to the gas station a few blocks down for sodas and gummy worms. I remember we were laughing about something. Some boy in a band she'd been crushing on. I was wearing an old tank top that stuck to my back and a pair of too big flip-flops that slapped the sidewalk with each step. There was a man standing near the vending machines outside the store. He looked normal. You'd pass him on the street and not think twice. Tan cargo shorts, navy t-shirt, a ball cap that shadowed his face. He didn't look at us at first, just stood there with a handful of flyers, one arm resting casually on the vending machine like he belonged there. "Wanna bet he's trying to sell lawn care or something?" Kaylee muttered, nudging me. We rolled our eyes and walked past him, but he stepped forward with a smile. "Hey there, sorry to bug you girls," he said, holding out a flyer. "Just doing a little canvassing for a local charity drive. You mind taking one?" Kaylee took it automatically. I did too. It felt rude not to. "Thanks," I said, barely glancing at it. I don't even remember what it said. Something about community cleanup. He smiled wider. "You girls from around here?" "No, just staying with my cousin," Kaylee said before I could say anything. The man nodded slowly, like he was filing that away. "That's nice. Not many folks care much about family anymore." Then he looked at me. "You look like you'd be a good volunteer. We're meeting just down the block, in the church recreation hall. Won't take long. Juice boxes and pizza at the end." I remember laughing a little. "Maybe next time." "Suit yourself," he said, but his eyes lingered a little too long. We walked away fast. I remember looking back once and seeing him still standing there, his face turned in our direction. That evening, we were alone again. Aunt June was on the night shift at the hospital. Uncle Mark was out of town for work. The house was quiet, too quiet, with the air conditioning barely working and the windows open just enough to let in the buzz of cicadas. Around 6:30, Kaylee went to take a shower. I stayed in the living room, flipping through a fashion magazine, one leg tucked under me on the couch. That's when the doorbell rang. I thought maybe it was her neighbor. Sometimes the girl next door came over to borrow things. When I opened the door, the man from earlier was standing there. Before I could even form a word, he smiled and said, "Sorry. I think I dropped my phone outside earlier, just retracing my steps. Mind if I check the yard?" Something in me hesitated, but I didn't want to be rude. I opened the door wider, gesturing. Sure, I guess." And that's when he shoved me. The force was instant. He pushed hard, one hand gripping my throat, the other slamming the door behind him. My scream caught in my throat as he dragged me by the arm toward the kitchen. I kicked, twisted, clawed, but he was strong. So much stronger than I ever imagined someone could be. "I'll kill you if you make a sound," he hissed, yanking duct tape from a bag he had slung over one shoulder. And I believed him. I don't remember how long the drive was. He shoved me into the trunk of his sedan after binding my hands with tape. There was a strong chemical smell back there, like bleach and metal and sweat. When he opened the trunk, we were somewhere I didn't recognize. An apartment complex, but not a nice one. The kind where the hallway lights flicker and no one looks out their windows. He dragged me inside a ground floor unit. The carpet was stained. The air was stale and thick. The bedroom had blackout curtains. The closet was padlocked shut. He pushed me onto the mattress on the floor, then shut the door and locked it. And then he changed. He didn't talk much at first, just paced the room, muttering to himself and occasionally looking at me like I was a stray animal in his house. He finally spoke when he took out the knife. "I want you to remember this," he said, crouching beside me. "People forget pain, but a name, my name, well, that'll stick." I cried then, silently, as he carved into the soft part of my forearm. Slow, deliberate, like he was etching words into a tree trunk. When he finished, blood seeping down to my elbow, he sat back and smiled. "You're mine now," he whispered. He tied me to the bed using zip ties and a belt. I don't know how long he kept me there, hours maybe. He made me take a pill, something that made the world swim and tilt. But I never blacked out completely. I waited. I watched. When he finally lay beside me, snoring softly, I began working at the zip tie on my wrist. I twisted and bit at it, ignoring the pain. Eventually it snapped. I moved slowly, carefully, heart hammering in my chest. I slipped my foot from the belt binding and crept toward the door. That's when I saw the closet door. It was open just an inch. I don't know why I looked. Curiosity maybe, or instinct. Inside were dresses. Girls' dresses, dirty, torn. Some were stained with blood. There were too many. I didn't wait any longer. I ran barefoot, out the door, down the hallway, past a cracked window. My feet hit gravel. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I ran into the road, waving my arms wildly at a pickup truck that screeched to a halt. The man inside was in his 60s. He took one look at me, bloody, shaking, half-dressed, and called 911 on the spot. I gave them everything I had. His description, the apartment number, even the carved name on my arm. By the time police swarmed the complex, Raymond Cale, age 38, had barricaded himself inside. They tried to talk him down, but he shot himself before they could get in. In his apartment, they found 6 dresses, a folder of missing person flyers, a shoebox of photos. I was the only one who survived. When my parents arrived at the hospital, I was already stitched up. My arm would always bear his name, though laser treatment helped fade it years later. They cried. I didn't. Not at first. It wasn't until I got back home, weeks later, that it hit me. I'd been let down by the world. The adults. The ones who were supposed to notice when a girl was gone, when a man was lurking. But I survived. And now, every time I tell this story, this ugly, honest story, I do it for the others who didn't get away, so someone remembers, so someone notices next time. In the ordinary things, horror hides best. I was just tired that night. That kind of tired that goes bone deep. I'm Emily Walker, 36, single mother of 2. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. My kids, Ben, 15, and Clara, 10, are my life. Their dad and I split custody. He has them 1 month. I have them the next. We've managed to keep things amicable for the kids' sake. This happened in March. I still check the locks twice every night now. That Friday was a blur. I worked a full shift at the medical billing office where the air always feels a few degrees colder than it should. I hadn't planned to go shopping that late, but the fridge was nearly empty and it was the first weekend I had the kids back. I always overbuy groceries during my months with them. Maybe guilt, maybe habit. Ben had texted me earlier to say he was going out with a few friends. Just a movie. I wasn't thrilled about leaving Clara alone, but 10 is around the age a lot of parents start trusting their kids a little more. I told her to lock the doors and keep her phone close. She's mature for her age, always has been. By the time I got to the house around 9:10, the sky had turned that deep, almost black blue. The air was cold for March. I had about 10 plastic bags in the back seat and another 8 in the trunk. A full haul. I remember thinking how quiet the street was, like even the wind had paused. I made 3 trips, then 4. The last one was just for bottled water and laundry detergent. I shut the door behind me with my foot, locked it, and sighed. My fingers were aching. My back hurt. Still, I was glad to be home. I put away the groceries, half listening to Clara's favorite cartoon echoing faintly from upstairs. After I'd loaded the fridge and pantry, I went up to say hi. The hallway light was on, and I could hear the shower running in the bathroom across from Clara's room. I smiled. She's like me, loves long showers. I figured I'd give her a few minutes and went back downstairs, collapsed onto the couch, and opened Netflix. I remember it clearly. Maid was in my continue watching row. I'd seen the first few episodes and it hit home in too many ways, but I kept watching it anyway. I was 20 minutes into the episode when I glanced at the time, 9:47. The shower was still going. Now, I'm not the kind of mom who micromanages every detail, but long showers rack up the water bill, and I'd told Clara many times to be mindful. I went upstairs and knocked gently on the door. "Clara, sweetheart? Don't stay in too long, okay?" No answer. The water continued to run. I knocked again, a little louder. "Hey, kiddo, wrap it up. Water isn't free." Still nothing. I waited another minute. Something started to feel wrong. I leaned down to glance under the door. No steam. That's the thing that hit me. When Clara showers, the hallway turns into a sauna. There's always fog on the mirror outside the bathroom, but this time, nothing. And then I saw it. The faintest bit of movement. A foot. Pale. Not Clara's. I stepped back. The bathroom light was off. Something cold bloomed in my chest. "Clara?" I said again, louder. My voice cracked. No reply. I grabbed the doorknob. Locked. Every inside door in my house has one of those little push locks you can open with a fingernail or coin. I forced it open in seconds. I shoved the door inward and froze. There was a woman in the bathtub, lying flat, fully clothed, letting the shower rain down on her. She wasn't Clara. She looked like she'd been dead and buried years ago and just clawed her way back out. Pale skin, thin as paper, soaking wet clothes. Her face was hollow, her eyes half open, unfocused. Long gray hair matted to her skull. My scream came out broken, choked, and raw. I stumbled backward, knocking over the toothbrush holder and soap. The woman sat up. Slowly. Her joints popped like old wood. She looked at me. There was no expression, just vacancy, like her soul had slipped out hours ago. I slammed the door shut and screamed Clara's name. I tore down the hall and burst into her room. She was under the blankets, curled into a ball. "Come on." I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her out of bed. She was trembling, eyes wide, confused. "Mom? Who's that?" We ran past the bathroom. The woman, that thing, was standing in the doorway now, dripping onto the tile. Watching. No movement, no words. Just watching. I grabbed my phone from the counter, dragging Clara behind me. We ran down into the basement, into the guest room, and I locked the door behind us. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I pressed 911 and had to whisper the words out. "There's a woman in my house. I don't know who she is. She was in my bathroom. My daughter's here. Please, hurry." The dispatcher kept me calm while I wrapped Clara in a blanket. She clung to me like she was 5 again. "I thought it was you," she whispered. "I heard someone come in. I thought it was you." My chest tightened. She paused. But when I peeked out of my door, she was walking up the stairs. I didn't know what to do, so I hid. Ben. He left the door unlocked. 10 minutes later, police arrived. I heard the knock and the announcement before opening the basement door. They searched the entire house, every room, every closet, under beds, behind shower curtains. Nothing. She was gone. Gone, just like that. The front door was unlocked. Again, there were wet footprints in the upstairs hallway. That was all she left behind. I gave the police every detail I could. Her face, her soaked clothes, her silence, her eyes. They looked like eyes that had seen too much and forgotten all of it. I asked if they thought she was high or mentally ill. One of the officers said something that stayed with me. There's no telling what people are anymore. Drugs can do a lot, but so can grief. So can years alone. I changed every lock on every door that weekend. Ben got home around 11. He didn't understand what had happened. Not until I showed him the wet footprints the police hadn't cleaned up. He apologized. I didn't yell at him. I couldn't. I was too drained. We stayed at my sister's house for the next 3 nights. I didn't sleep much. They never found her. No neighbors reported seeing anyone leave. No fingerprints, no forced entry. Nothing on the doorbell camera. It's been months now. Every time I hear the shower run, I feel a pang in my chest. Every creak in the night makes me tense. Because here's the thing. She didn't take anything. She didn't hurt us. She just stood there, in my home, in my bathroom, in my place. And for reasons I still don't understand, that's what terrifies me most. I never liked Easter much after what happened that year. We don't talk about it in the family anymore, but I still see it sometimes when I close my eyes. The oversized bunny head, the tiny hand being held, the flash of a black car turning the corner. Back then, our family was still whole. My husband Daniel and I were trying hard to hold on to the magic of childhood for our two boys, Ben and Oliver. Ben had just turned 6. Oliver was 4, timid, sweet, and attached to me like a barnacle. Ben was our bold one, curious, always asking questions, always the first to jump in. It was the spring of 2007. Daniel had found this charming little family resort called Pinewood Grove, nestled in the Catskills of upstate New York. Their brochures were glossy and cheerful, hiking trails, horseback rides, bonfires at night, and a whole week of Easter-themed activities for the kids. We thought it'd be the perfect getaway. The place was cute in that dated 80s summer camp way. Slightly musty cabins, an oversized lodge with buffet-style meals, and a big grassy field that served as the central play area for the kids. There were other families, mostly from the city, trying to get their kids away from screens for a week. The first couple of days were good. The boys colored eggs in the crafts room, chased each other across the fields, and roasted marshmallows with Daniel by the fire pit. Every afternoon there was a theme. Egg painting Monday, bunny bingo Tuesday. And of course the Easter bunny made appearances almost daily. He wore a fuzzy white suit that looked like it had seen better days. Big fake blue eyes, a round pink nose, and oversized feet that flopped when he walked. He didn't talk, just waved and high-fived kids, sometimes posed for pictures. The resort claimed it was just a local volunteer who did it as a tradition every year. I noticed early on that Oliver hated the costume. The moment he saw the bunny the first day at breakfast, he clung to my legs and started crying so hard his nose bled. I pulled him into my lap while the bunny walked past our table, offering awkward waves. Ben, on the other hand, thought the bunny was the coolest thing ever. He high-fived him, laughed when he pretended to trip, and waved wildly every time the suit appeared. There wasn't anything that stood out right away. The guy, whoever he was, seemed to know how to make kids laugh without talking. Just exaggerated movements, cartoonish pantomime. But then things started to feel off. Day 4, Thursday. That morning was the big egg hunt. They set it up in the south field near the play center. I helped Oliver with his little plastic basket, while Daniel went off to get us coffee from the lodge. Ben raced off with a group of older kids, scanning bushes and tall grass for the pastel eggs. The Easter bunny was there too, hopping along, literally, sometimes pretending to hide eggs and letting kids find them nearby. At first I thought it was cute how much time he was spending near Ben. He gave him extra eggs, even gestured to where one was hidden behind a tree stump. Ben grinned up at him, completely trusting. But after a while I noticed he was only near Ben, following him around the field, not interacting with the other kids much at all. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Still, I decided to keep Oliver away from that side of the field. He'd already had 2 meltdowns during the trip, and I didn't want another. So we moved to the far edge where some toddlers were still figuring out the game. Maybe 10 minutes passed, maybe a little more. Then I glanced back across the field. No Ben. I scanned the crowd. Dozens of kids, parents, the bunny, the camp counselors in their green Pinewood Grove polos, but no red hoodie. Ben had worn that bright red hoodie every day that week. It had a little white dinosaur on the back. It should have stood out. "Ben," I called out once, trying not to panic. Then a woman with short gray blonde hair touched my shoulder gently. "Are you looking for a boy in a red sweatshirt?" she asked. I nodded quickly. Yes, Ben. Did you see him?" I just saw him with the bunny. They were walking that way. She pointed behind the kids' center, where the field sloped down toward the parking lot. I thought it was weird. I thought maybe he was helping the bunny with something. My heart dropped into my stomach. I grabbed Oliver, basket and all, and ran. I don't remember how I had the strength to do it. Oliver wasn't light. But I ran across that uneven grass like I was weightless. I screamed Ben's name so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. Then I saw them. The bunny, holding my son's hand, maybe 20 feet from the black sedan parked crooked near the edge of the gravel lot. They turned at my voice. Ben smiled, innocent. The bunny let go of his hand. Everything after that happened so fast. I reached them just as Ben came running into my arms. "What are you doing?" I shouted at the man in the costume, voice cracking. "Why did you take him?" He threw his arms up like he was the one being accused. "He looked lost," he said. I was stunned he even spoke. "I was bringing him to his mom." "I am his mom," I shouted. Then I reached for the bunny head, furious, but he shoved me, hard. I fell to the side with Oliver in my arms. Ben screamed. The man bolted to the driver's side of the car and peeled out so fast the gravel kicked into my face. I tried to get the license plate, but it was smeared with dirt, or something darker. Daniel showed up 10 minutes later. He had no idea what had happened. I was sobbing, clutching both boys, shaking so hard I could barely speak. We went straight to the front desk. That's when the real horror set in. The staff told us, flat out, that no one had been assigned to wear the Easter bunny costume that day. Apparently, the volunteer who usually did it had called in sick that morning. The costume had gone missing from the storage shed behind the kids' center, and none of the staff stopped the man because they thought we had brought him, that he was part of our family's fun or a private hire. They hadn't even realized the real bunny suit was gone. We called the police, of course, filed a report. But there were no security cameras outside, just inside the lodge and dining hall. The parking lot footage showed the black sedan, but not the plates. Angle was bad. Ben didn't understand. He kept saying he was nice. He gave me an egg with chocolate inside. And that crushed me, because to a child, kindness is measured in candy. The resort gave us a full refund, profusely apologized, and offered free stays for life. We never went back. Not even to that part of the state. For months after, Ben had nightmares about people in costumes, Chuck E. Cheese, Santa Claus, mascots at baseball games. We enrolled him in therapy. He's 23 now and doing well. He doesn't remember most of it, or says he doesn't. I still dream about it. That bunny head turning. Those lifeless blue eyes. That black car. We were seconds away, just seconds away from losing him. And what haunts me most? That man could have done it again. Maybe he did. It started with small things, the kind of moments you wave off in the middle of life. We were tired. We were hopeful. We were just trying to make things work. My name is Daniel Whitaker. My wife's name is Ava. We live, or lived, in a quiet little neighborhood just outside of Rosewood, Indiana. A tree-lined street, retired folks, the occasional lemonade stand, the kind of place you think nothing bad ever really happens. We adopted our son, Caleb, when he was 2 years old. He was quiet, serious for a toddler. He'd come from a foster situation after his birth mother, someone we never got much information about, had dropped him off at a hospital and never returned. We were told he'd be a little behind developmentally because of some early neglect, but nothing we couldn't handle. Ava and I were overjoyed. She couldn't have kids, and we had long since made peace with adoption. From the moment we brought him home, we were honest with him. As he learned to talk, we made sure he understood he was adopted, that he was chosen, wanted, loved. He's 7 now, a sweet, clever kid who likes dinosaurs and waffles and insists on sleeping with his nightlight on, even though he says he's not scared of the dark. But this story isn't really about Caleb. Not directly. It's about the house, or what was in the house, or what followed us into it. We moved into 118 Alder Lane in late March of last year. It was a foreclosure property, a little rundown but structurally sound. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, a sunroom, and a large fenced backyard for Caleb to play in. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We painted Caleb's bedroom sky blue, bought a swing set secondhand, and let him pick out posters for his playroom, which used to be the guest room. It took a couple of weeks before anything felt off. It began subtly. One of Caleb's dinosaurs, a green plastic stegosaurus, kept ending up in the kitchen, even though we always had him clean up before bed. Once I found it inside the fridge, sitting upright on the middle shelf, next to the eggs. I asked Caleb if he put it there. "No," he said plainly. "George did." "George?" I laughed, assuming he was naming his toys. "Who's George?" He didn't answer. He just kept eating his cereal. Ava brushed it off. "Imaginary friend?" she said, smiling. Totally normal. And she was right. Caleb had never had one before, and honestly, I was happy to see him pretending. For a kid who used to barely speak, it felt like progress. But imaginary friends don't slam closet doors. It was a Thursday evening when I heard it for the first time. I had just finished putting dishes away and was passing by Caleb's playroom when I heard voices. 2 of them. One was Caleb's, no doubt, but the other was lower, not deeper, not adult, just wrong. I froze, holding a damp dish towel in my hand, trying to listen. "No, you go first," Caleb said, laughing. Then silence. Then, "Fine, but you promised." I stepped closer. "Hey, Caleb," I called, gently pushing the door open. He sat cross-legged at his Lego table, facing the open closet. None of his toys were in his hands. He wasn't playing. He was just staring inside. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. He turned to look at me. His eyes were flat, almost like I'd startled him awake. "No one," he said, a little too quickly. "You said George before. Is George in the closet?" He nodded. I walked over to the closet, expecting nothing. I pulled the door open. Empty. "Okay, buddy. Time for a bath," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "George can help clean up." He didn't laugh. He just stood up slowly and whispered, "George doesn't like water." That weekend, Ava and I sat on the porch after Caleb had gone to bed. It was one of those warm, still nights where the sky looks like velvet. I brought up George. "Is it me?" I asked. "Or is Caleb's imaginary friend getting a little creepy?" She smiled, but there was a flicker of concern behind her eyes. "Kids get weird. Remember my brother used to talk to his stuffed shark like it was his lawyer?" "I know. He talks to this George like he's real, and sometimes it sounds like he's listening to someone talk back." "You're overthinking it, Danny." Maybe I was, until I wasn't. 3 nights later, I heard the closet slam. It was after 9 p.m., long after Caleb's bedtime. I was walking down the hallway to turn off the hall light when it happened. His closet door slammed hard from the inside, not like it drifted shut, like someone had thrown it closed. I rushed into his room. The nightlight glowed faintly blue. Caleb? He wasn't in bed. The closet door was shut. I opened it fast, my heart pounding. Caleb stood inside, barefoot, clutching his stuffed bear, staring straight ahead. "What are you doing?" I asked, kneeling down. "He said I had to," Caleb whispered. "Who said?" "George." That night I didn't sleep. I sat up next to Ava, telling her everything. Again. But this time, she didn't laugh or smile it off, because this time she had seen it too. Earlier that day, while I was at work, she'd found Caleb in the backyard showing someone how to dig a hole with a plastic shovel. There was no one there, but she swore Caleb paused like he was listening, then laughed, then said, "Okay, but only if you don't get mad this time." "He's talking to someone," Ava said, her voice tight. "It doesn't feel like a game anymore." We agreed to talk to someone, maybe a child psychologist, but we didn't get the chance. 2 nights later, around 2:13 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Click, click, click. I shook Ava awake. Do you hear that? We both sat up, listening. Click, click, click. It was coming from Caleb's playroom. We crept down the hall. Caleb's bed was empty. The door was ajar. As I pushed it open, the clicking stopped. I opened the closet. Empty. Then from the ceiling, a plastic wind-up dinosaur fell down and hit my shoulder. It had claw marks down its side, gouges like something had tried to rip it open. We checked the cameras the next day, baby monitors we'd set up for peace of mind. The footage showed Caleb standing in the middle of the room at 2:11 a.m., speaking to the open closet. Then, the camera glitched, just for 3 seconds. When the image came back, Caleb was gone. Then he reappeared, stepping out of the closet, alone. It was Ava who found it, a photo, our wedding portrait that hung in the hallway, split clean down the middle. The glass, the wood frame, and even the picture itself, ripped perfectly between our two faces. One half lay on the floor, the other still on the nail. Neither of us had touched it. That was when we decided to leave. We packed a week's worth of clothes and stayed at Ava's sister's place across town. A week passed without incident. We came back only to prepare the house for sale. The first few days were quiet. Caleb seemed better, more relaxed, more present. Then one morning, Ava opened the linen closet and found Caleb's bear. Its arms had been twisted backward, and its head had been partially ripped off. Caleb swore he hadn't touched it. When I asked who did, he looked past me, into the hallway, and said softly, "George doesn't want to leave." Our final night in the house, I stayed up. I sat outside Caleb's door with a kitchen knife in my lap. At 3:12 a.m., the hall light flickered. Caleb's door creaked open on its own. I stepped inside. He was in bed, eyes wide open, silent tears running down his cheeks. "What's wrong, buddy?" I whispered. "He's mad at you," he said. "He says you're taking me away." A coldness swept over the room. The closet door began to rattle. I picked Caleb up and walked out, heart pounding. Ava was waiting at the stairs with the car keys. We left everything, just got in the car and drove. We sold the house within 2 months, never went back. Caleb doesn't talk about George anymore. He sleeps better. He smiles more. Sometimes, though, when he's playing quietly, I catch him glancing at the corners of the room like he's waiting for someone to show up. And once, last week, he asked me, "Do you think George found a new house?" I didn't answer, because I don't want to know. But some nights after we've put Caleb to bed and the house is quiet, I hear a soft click, and I pray it's just my imagination. I was 15 the summer my father took me camping for what would be our last Father's Day together. I didn't know that at the time, of course. Back then, I thought we had endless summers ahead of us, endless excuses to pitch tents, burn marshmallows, and skip rocks across still water. But things change, sometimes quickly, sometimes while you're still laughing at a dumb joke your dad made about bear spray doubling as deodorant. My name's Mira, and I grew up in the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. My dad, Dev Malik, was the kind of man who didn't just fix cars. He loved cars, Mustangs, Impalas, even our boring old Tacoma. He spoke to them like people. He had those permanent grease stains on his hands and smelled like gasoline and pine sap most days. But he gave the best bear hugs in the world. My mom passed when I was 7. After that, it was just Dad and me. He made every Father's Day about us, not him. He'd always say, "I only get to be a dad because I have you, kiddo." I rolled my eyes every year, but I loved it. That year, he chose a secluded site in Pisgah National Forest, about a 2-hour drive from home. I was hoping we'd stay closer to Lake Julian like last year, but Dad said the forest had better fishing and fewer people. He wasn't wrong. We got there late afternoon. Tall trees surrounded us, the kind that made you feel small in the best way. A winding creek whispered nearby. Birds called to each other like old friends. The firewood was still a bit damp from recent rains, but Dad always packed dry sticks in the truck bed. "Because nature's moody," he'd said. We set up the tent, unpacked our stuff, and I was actually excited. I didn't admit that, of course. I acted like I was only there for the s'mores and the horror stories. But deep down, I was just glad to be alone with Dad. No school, no cell signal, no reminders of everything I couldn't control. But we weren't quite alone. There was another campsite about 150 feet away, just visible through a gap in the trees. Two men had set up a cheap dome tent and strung up beer cans on a makeshift line. At first it seemed normal. Campers often share spaces in the forest. But the longer we stayed, the stranger they felt. They weren't hiking, they weren't fishing, they barely left their camp. They drank, loudly. One of them had this hacking cough that wouldn't quit. The other wore sunglasses even after dusk. Every time I laughed or said something, I could feel eyes on us. Dad noticed too. At first he tried to ignore it, just kept tending the fire, whistling, even pulled out his harmonica. But every time those men laughed too loud or mumbled something toward our direction, I saw the corners of his mouth tighten. His knuckles turned pale as he gripped the handle of the cooler. Just before sunset, he looked at me and said quietly, "Mira, help me pack up. We're changing spots." I blinked. "What?" "But we just set up." "No arguments," he said, calm but firm. "We're moving closer to the access road. I don't like the feel of this place." And that was all. We didn't even roll the tent, just shoved it, still half-assembled, into the truck. Dad kept glancing behind us, shoulders tense. The new spot was a small clearing closer to a gravel road, still technically in the forest, but close enough to hear the occasional car hum past. I was annoyed. The other spot was prettier, quieter, but I didn't push it. We ate instant noodles by lantern light and roasted marshmallows, but something in Dad was different. He was still making jokes and telling old stories, like the time I accidentally poured orange soda into his engine instead of oil, but his eyes never fully relaxed. He kept glancing toward the tree line. Then, somewhere between laughter and the last ghost story of the night, everything changed. He was mid-sentence when he stopped cold, eyes locked beyond the firelight. I followed his gaze but saw nothing, at first. Then I heard it, crunching leaves. 2 sets of footsteps, close, too close. "Mira," he whispered, his voice tighter than I'd ever heard it. "Under the truck, now." "What? Why?" "No time. Go. Quiet." Something in his tone flipped a switch inside me. I didn't argue. I crept to the truck, slid underneath, and held my breath. From my view below the undercarriage, I saw 2 pairs of boots approach the fire. It was them, the drunk men. One had a beer in hand. The other held a flashlight and kept scanning the area, including the truck. "Evening," one of them called casually. "Nice spot." Dad stood slowly, keeping the fire poker in his hand. "Evening need something?" The guy with the beer smirked. "Nah, just thought we'd join ya. Was getting kinda quiet over there." My dad's smile didn't touch his eyes. "She's fishing. Should be back soon." That made them pause. "Fishing, huh?" one mumbled, tilting his head. "That right?" Then the guy with the flashlight broke off and started toward the truck. My heart slammed against my ribs. He was scanning the vehicle, the windows, looking for me. I held my breath. He walked just a few feet from my face. I could smell his sweat, his beer breath. Then he stopped, fiddled with his zipper. He wasn't inspecting the truck. He was peeing on a bush near it. I nearly gagged, but I stayed still. He whistled an off-key tune as he went, then zipped up and returned to the fire. Both men stood a bit longer, then finally turned away. "Well, guess we'll let you be," one of them said with a thin smile. Dad didn't respond, just stood there, poker in hand, eyes never blinking. Once they disappeared into the woods, he moved fast, loaded everything except the tent, left it there still open. When he unlocked the truck, I rolled out from under and scrambled inside. We didn't speak until we reached a ranger station. From there, Dad called the local sheriff's department. Turns out his instincts were dead on. The two men had followed us. Rangers spotted their car idling near the access road, engine still warm, headlights off. But they hadn't expected my dad to drive straight to the nearest sheriff's substation. When the cruiser pulled them over, they claimed they were just driving around. A quick check showed one had a warrant for trespassing. The other had a knife tucked in his sock. When the officer asked my dad if these were the same men from the forest, he stared them down and said, calm and slow, "You're lucky I brought my daughter to the cops instead of burying you both where no one would ever find you." They were arrested. The charges didn't stick for long. Trespassing, minor weapons violation. But that wasn't the point. The point was, my dad saved me. Because he sensed something. Because he acted. After that summer, Father's Day became different. The following year, Dad had a stroke. He survived, but he wasn't the same. He couldn't hike, couldn't drive. We celebrated with takeout and old photos. But I never forgot that night. The firelight, the tension, the calm rage in his voice. Now, every Father's Day, when the internet floods with brunch photos and crisp shirts and handmade cards, I don't post anything. I just take out that old harmonica he used to play and sit under the same pine tree in our backyard. Sometimes I play, sometimes I cry, and sometimes I remember the weight of the fire poker in his hand and how it glinted in the dark, ready to protect me with everything he had. To every parent reading this, your instincts are powerful. Don't ignore them. And to every daughter, know what it looks like when someone would walk through fire to keep you safe. Because I do. I always used to think Father's Day was just another Hallmark gimmick. Ties, socks, cheap cologne. But not for me. For me, it was sacred. Growing up in the countryside near Sheffield, it had always been just Dad and me. No siblings. Mum passed away giving birth to me. He never remarried. We lived in a little brick house that smelled of burnt toast and old records, with roses he insisted on pruning himself every spring. Dad, Peter Holloway, was a quiet man. Not cold, just understated. He worked as a school librarian, always had his nose in a book and never lost his temper. He taught me chess, how to patch a leaky sink, and the importance of saying please even when you're angry. He started forgetting little things when he was 62. Keys in the fridge, mismatched shoes, confusing the kettle for the toaster. At first we laughed about it, thought it was just age. But then came the terrifying moments. Getting lost in his own neighborhood, panicking in the middle of Tesco because he didn't know how he got there. The diagnosis came quick after that, early onset dementia. Now he's 65 and lives at Oakmere House, a specialist care home on the outskirts of town. Beautiful place. Ivy-covered bricks, nice staff, warm lighting, but sterile. Too quiet. It doesn't smell like home. This year for Father's Day, I decided to do something different. I wanted to bring him back, to spend one last weekend just the two of us like it used to be. I thought I could handle it. Saturday, 10:13 a.m. It was raining lightly when I pulled up outside Oakmere House. The wipers beat a soft rhythm as I parked my silver Vauxhall Corsa. My heart pounded, not with fear, just that gnawing tension of uncertainty. Megan, one of the senior carers, greeted me with a clipboard in hand. "Riley," she said softly, "you're sure you want to take him for the full weekend? I've prepped everything, guest bedrooms made up. I stocked the fridge with his favorites, he'll love it." She didn't smile, just hesitated. He's changed a bit, especially at night. Restless, talks to the window. Sometimes he says he sees someone. Who? We don't know. He just calls her the lady. Keeps saying she's waiting. A chill crawled under my collar. Is this part of the disease? Most likely, Megan said carefully. Still, it can be unsettling. If you're feeling overwhelmed, call us. We have a night response team. I'll be fine, I said with a nervous laugh. It's my dad. Saturday, 12:04 p.m. He looked older than I remembered, pale, thinner. But when he saw me, his eyes lit up. "Riley," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nearly cried. It had been weeks since he'd called me by my name. The drive back was quiet. He stared out the window like everything was new. Trees, buildings, traffic lights. It reminded me of when I was little and he'd point out clouds shaped like animals. When we reached my flat, a modest third-floor place in a quiet cul-de-sac, I helped him up the stairs. He seemed in good spirits. He laughed when my dog, Toby, jumped up to greet him. "That your dog?" he asked. "Yeah, you met him last year, remember?" "I don't remember much," he said, not sadly, just factually. I guided him into the guest room. Fresh sheets, a vase of lilies, a framed photo of us from a holiday in Cornwall years ago. He picked it up, stared at it for a long time, and then asked, "Is this your brother?" "No, Dad, that's you." "Oh." Saturday evening. We had shepherd's pie for dinner. He still remembered he liked it. We watched an old black and white detective film afterward, The Third Man, and I kept stealing glances at his face. He was smiling, comfortable, not entirely present, but not lost either. "Remember the holiday when we camped near the coast?" I asked. He nodded vaguely. "You were afraid of crabs." "I was 7, I laughed. "They looked like spiders." He looked at me with soft eyes. "You've grown up," he said. "I didn't think I'd get to see it." My throat closed up. "You've always seen it, Dad. You were always there." Sunday, 2:13 a.m. Something woke me. Not a noise. More like a pressure in the air. The kind of feeling you get before a thunderstorm. I got up and walked to the corridor. The flat was quiet. No TV, no traffic outside. Just the faint hum of the fridge. That's when I noticed the guest room door was open. I stepped in. The bed was empty. "Dad?" I called, my voice low, afraid to wake the neighbors. I checked the lounge, the kitchen, even the bathroom. Nothing. Then I saw the balcony door. It was ajar. I rushed out, barefoot and shivering. Dad was standing near the edge of the railing, barefoot too, looking down at the quiet car park below. His back was rigid. One foot lifted as if he were about to step forward. "Dad!" I yelled, rushing toward him. He didn't turn. "The lady's waiting," he whispered. I grabbed his arm. "What lady?" "There's no one there." He finally turned. His eyes were wide and glassy, but filled with something I couldn't explain. Joy? Terror? Madness? "You don't see her?" he asked, confused. "She's in the dress. She's always watching." "There's no one there. Please come inside. It's freezing." He didn't fight me, but he didn't help either. I gently guided him back to the guest room, wrapped him in a blanket, and sat beside him until he dozed off. But I didn't sleep again that night. Sunday, 9:48 a.m. He was fine in the morning, cheerful even, asked for toast with marmalade. He didn't remember the night before. Not a word of it. I wanted to bring it up, but didn't. Maybe denial is a defense mechanism. Maybe it's cowardice. Sunday, 11:56 p.m. We watched Casablanca after dinner. He loved the soundtrack, hummed along softly. "I used to dance to this with your mother," he said suddenly. "In the kitchen. You were in your cot." My chest tightened. I wish I remembered her. "You've got her eyes," he said. After the movie ended, I tucked him in and turned off the lights. I went to bed, leaving the door open, just in case. Monday, 3:02 a.m. The screaming pulled me from sleep like a ripcord. I bolted upright, heart pounding. "Riley! Riley!" I ran down the hall. The guest room light was flickering. Dad was on the floor, thrashing wildly. "She's here! She's here!" I dropped beside him. "Dad, it's okay, you're safe." "She's in the mirror. I saw her eyes. She wants me to jump." I froze. What did she say? She said the world forgot me, that I'm just a burden, That you—" He stopped. "That you'd be better off." I hugged him tightly, tears pouring down my face. "You're not a burden," I whispered. "You're my father." He quieted. His breathing slowed. His fingers gripped mine. "You smell like Mum," he murmured. "She had that lavender thing." Then he passed out from exhaustion. Monday, 6:44 a.m. Megan and a nurse named Sophie came to pick him up. I had called them after the incident. I didn't know what else to do. He was calm again, distant, almost docile. As they walked him to the lift, he turned around once. "Riley," he said. "Yes, Dad?" "Tell the lady I'm not ready yet." The lift doors closed. That was 6 months ago. I visit him every week. Sometimes he knows me. Sometimes he calls me nurse. Sometimes he doesn't speak at all. No one ever explained who the lady was. Megan thinks it was a hallucination, some figure his brain conjured in the chaos of dementia. But I'm not sure. Because since that weekend, strange things have happened in my flat. Mirrors steam up with words I didn't write. Once I found a single footprint on the balcony after a dry night. Lavender scent in my hallway, even though I don't use it. And sometimes, just sometimes, I dream of a woman in a pale dress standing at the end of my bed, watching, waiting. I still celebrate Father's Day, but I do it differently now. Not with cards or cake, just a visit, a conversation even if one-sided, and I never leave the balcony door unlocked. I was 8 the first time I saw real evil. Not the kind you read about in storybooks or see in movies. Real evil is subtle. It doesn't wear a black cloak or have glowing red eyes. Sometimes it smiles sweetly and says, "I'm a friend of your mother." We lived in Pine Grove back then, a small, sleepy town with one main road, a diner that served burnt toast no matter how you ordered it, and a single Walmart that everyone within 30 miles depended on for everything from groceries to auto parts. My name's Aaron. I'm 25 now, but this story happened 17 years ago, just before Father's Day. It was a Sunday afternoon. My mom, Dana, had just finished vacuuming and scrubbing the hallway floors. She was still wearing her old faded t-shirt from her college days that read, "Don't rush me. I'm waiting for the last minute." I remember it because I used to trace the letters with my finger when I was younger. "Hey, Aaron," she called from the living room, catching her breath. "Want to come with me to Walmart? I need some cleaner." "You said you needed crayons for your Father's Day card?" I perked up. "Can I get the big pack this time? With the silver and gold?" She smiled. "If you promise not to open them in the car this time and melt them on the seat, then yes." I grabbed my little wallet, one of those Velcro ones with race cars on it, and off we went. Walmart felt enormous back then. The automatic doors whooshed open like we were entering a spaceship. It smelled like popcorn, rubber tires, and floor polish. I was squeezing my mom's hand tight. She noticed. "Hey," she said, kneeling a little to look me in the eye. "We're just grabbing a few things in your colors, okay? You and me." I nodded, feeling better already. We started weaving through the aisles. I remember being fascinated by how everything seemed to exist in that one place. TVs, fishing poles, school supplies, even bird cages. That was the charm of Walmart to me back then. Coming from Pine Grove, it felt like a portal to the world. I think that's why I didn't notice her at first. The woman. She wasn't loud. She didn't make a scene. But after a while, I started recognizing the same purple windbreaker, the same long brown hair, the same way she pushed her cart. Slowly, always one aisle over. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe she just needed stuff from the same places as us. But after the 5th aisle, I began to feel off. "Mom?" I asked as we passed the pet food section. "I think that lady's following us." Mom turned around quickly, but the woman was gone. I saw her duck into the next aisle. Mom scanned the area but shrugged. Probably just shopping like we are. I nodded but didn't feel better. The woman reappeared behind us 3 aisles later. This time she smiled when she saw me look back. We eventually reached the school supply aisle. I was practically bouncing. Crayons, markers, glitter pens. I was in heaven. I picked out the largest pack they had, 120 colors. Mom checked her phone. "Aaron, I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. You stay right here, okay? Don't go anywhere." I nodded. "Promise." She kissed my forehead and walked off. I sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the crayon box, matching the names to the colors. Mango Tango, Razzmatazz, Macaroni and Cheese. Then I felt it, a cold hand on my shoulder. I turned around. It was her, the woman from the aisles. Up close, she looked older than I thought, maybe 40 or so, with eyes too wide and a smile that didn't match them. "Waiting for your mom?" she asked in a soft, sugary voice. I didn't answer, just nodded slowly. She crouched down beside me, her smile spreading. "I'm a friend of your mother. She asked me to come get you." I frowned. "She told me to wait here." She reached out and brushed my cheek. Her fingers were ice cold. "She just forgot something and went out to the car. I'll take you to her." Something in my chest twisted. I can wait here," I said. The woman tilted her head. "What are the crayons for?" "I'm making a card for my dad." Her expression twitched, just for a second. Her smile faltered. "You must love him a lot, huh?" I nodded. Why was that a weird question? She stood up and extended her hand. "Come on, let's go find him together." She grabbed my wrist, tight. I didn't want to go, but I froze. She started walking fast, dragging me along. My feet scraped the tile. "What about my mom?" I asked, louder this time. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were wild, and her smile wasn't friendly anymore. "I'll be your new mom," she whispered. "A better one. Trust me." My heart dropped. I looked around. No one seemed to notice. No one was watching us. I started to cry. She pulled harder, and now we were nearing the entrance. I saw the exit sign, the parking lot, sunlight spilling in. I remember thinking, I'll never see my mom again. Then I heard it. "Aaron!" A voice, familiar, urgent. I turned. It was Mom. She was running toward me, barefoot, stumbling, one hand on her head, which was covered in blood. Her shirt was stained and she was crying. The woman holding me stopped in her tracks. "Let him go!" Mom screamed. "Let him go right now!" People turned. Shoppers gasped. Someone dropped a basket. I screamed, "Mom!" The woman bolted. She let go of me and ran out the side exit before anyone could grab her. Walmart security rushed over. I ran into Mom's arms, sobbing. She collapsed to the floor with me, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. Turns out, when Mom went into the restroom, the woman had followed her. She attacked Mom from behind, slammed her head into the wall and left her unconscious. But Mom, somehow, maybe it was adrenaline, maybe it was instinct, woke up. Bleeding and dizzy, she dragged herself out, looking for me. She told the first employee she saw to call security, then sprinted straight to the school supply aisle, praying I'd still be there. And I wasn't. We went to the hospital. Mom needed 10 stitches. Dad and my uncle showed up within the hour. When security showed us the CCTV footage, my dad turned pale. He recognized the woman immediately. Her name was Denise Langley. She used to work with him at an auto parts plant 2 towns over. She'd become obsessed with him, sending letters, showing up at places he went. After he rejected her, she started showing up at our house. That's when Dad quit his job and moved us to Pine Grove. She must have followed us. She must have been watching us for weeks, waiting. Denise was caught 3 days later in another county. She was living out of a car, had wigs and fake IDs. She was charged with assault, attempted abduction, and stalking. Dad got a permanent restraining order. We didn't move again, but we changed our routines. Got cameras. Mom never went anywhere alone for months. but she was never afraid. I remember asking her once, "Weren't you scared?" She looked at me, brushed my hair back, and said, "I was terrified, but nothing could keep me from getting to you." I still have that crayon set. It's old and brittle now, but I keep it in my desk drawer. I never finished the card that year, but I didn't need to. My dad already knew how much I loved him, and thanks to my mom, my real mom, I was there to tell him.